What's up, my fellow Guardians? Profane here. Thanks for checking out the video. What are the best PVE exotic armor pieces in Destiny 2 right now? If you're a new light, returning, or even an everyday player, this is a very important question to be asking, because unlike a lot of other games out there, Destiny's sandbox is ever changing, with constant updates being made to weapons, armor, and exotics each and every season. So today we'll be breaking down the top 5 PVE exotic armor pieces for each class, Hunter, Warlock, and Titan. It's crucial to your success in Destiny to have the right loadouts to match whatever activity you're participating in, and the focal point of any build rests in your choice of exotic. The exotics included in today's list provide extremely powerful, game-changing benefits that will greatly improve your performance. To start things off, let's take a look at the 5 best exotics for Titan, and we start with the Lorelei Splendor. Even after getting nerfed a few seasons ago, this exotic helmet still provides tremendous survivability benefits to Solar Titans, creating sunspots that grant ×2 restoration whenever you become critically wounded. While it's not quite as strong as it once was, the Lorelei Splendor is still a great option to newer Guardians, or players who have a difficult time surviving in those more challenging activities. The Heart of Inmost Light is the next Titan exotic that we'll talk about, and it's one of the most reliable exotics that synergize with each subclass. Using one ability buffs the recharge rate of the others, increasing melee and grenade damage, and causing barricades to stay up longer. The Heart of Inmost Light is a perfect exotic to those who enjoy spamming abilities, and for that reason, it's a perfect exotic for new players on every subclass. Up next, the Cuirass of the Falling Star. This exotic chest piece buffs the damage of your Thunder Crash by 100%, and it grants an overshield once Thunder Crash has been activated. This exotic turns Arc Titans into an overpowered atomic bomb, with the ability to absolutely annihilate champions, tormentors, and bosses. And for that reason, it is one of the best exotic armor pieces during most boss encounters in dungeons, grandmasters, and raids. Another top tier DPS exotic that was recently introduced into Destiny is the Pyrogale Gauntlets. This exotic turns the roaming Burning Maw super into a one-shot slam that dishes out an extra 650% damage, causing enemies to become scorched and causing solar cyclones to be generated, which deal out damage over an extended amount of time. The Pyrogale Gauntlets also enhance the performance of the Solar Consecration ability, giving it its own miniature cyclone. While it's only been out for a few weeks, the Pyrogale has certainly made a big impact in the sandbox so far, giving Solar Titans the same level of lethality as the Cuirass does when running an Arc build. The final Titan exotic that we'll talk about today is the Synthoceps. It's no secret that Titans are built to punch things, and the Synthoceps fully embrace this concept, as its biotic enhancements will provide you with increased melee and super damage whenever you're surrounded, giving you a huge benefit regardless of what subclass you're using. And now let's shift our focus and talk about the top 5 Warlock exotics. The Sunbracers are one of the more popular exotics for Solar Warlocks. They allow you to rain down a ton of solar grenades, dealing out a massive amount of damage, which makes this exotic a perfect option for any solo player. The only downside to Sunbracers is that it does require a charged melee kill before you can start slinging out those solar grenades, which limits their usefulness when participating in activities like raids. And for that reason, I would recommend using one of the other exotics that are on this list when you are jumping into raids and other large group activities, which brings me to our next couple of exotics. And we start with the Boots of the Assembler. This is one of the best support exotics that Warlocks have, creating Seekers whenever you cast a Rift. Seekers that grant health and bonus weapon damage to both you and allies. With the Boots of the Assembler, you'll be able to single-handedly help your team stay alive longer and deal out more damage, greatly improving your chances at success in whatever activity you're in. Another standout support exotic that Warlocks have is the Cenotaph. It might be an ugly sight to look at, but this exotic provides unparalleled benefits that will help you and teammates maintain special and heavy ammo, which will become extremely important when you're going up against many of the current raid and dungeon bosses. While the Cenotaph is built for and synergizes with all trace rifles, it's the Navigator and the Divinity that are the two standouts that will help your team deal out more damage to raid bosses with the use of the Divinity, or help stay alive longer with the benefits of Woven Mail provided by the Navigator. As a side note to the Cenotaph, in case anyone at Bungie is watching, can we please get a Xenomorph ornament to go onto this thing? Pretty please? The next Warlock exotic that we'll talk about is the Stag. This exotic helmet is essentially the Warlock's version of the Lorelei Splendor, but it works on every subclass. Whenever you become critically wounded, you'll receive a 50% burst of class ability energy, and whenever you die, a healing rift will be generated. When standing in a rift or a well of radiance, you and allies will gain a 25% damage resistance bonus. While the Stag isn't the flashiest exotic, it is an extremely reliable one that will keep you and teammates alive in some of the toughest, life-threatening situations. Just as the Lorelei is perfect for newer Titans who may struggle with staying alive, the Stag will serve the same function to new light Warlocks. The last Warlock exotic that we'll talk about today is my personal favorite, the Necrotic Grips. This exotic inflicts poisonous damage over time whenever striking enemies with a melee attack. This poison will spread to other nearby enemies, and it synergizes extremely well with Scorch from Solar builds, Jolt from Arc builds, and Sever from Strand builds. Whether you're facing other Guardians, rank and file enemies, or big champions and bosses, the Necrotic Grips will be a perfect exotic to keep those enemies at bay. And now, let's turn our attention to Hunters and talk about their top 5 PvE exotics. The first of which being the Assassin's Cowl, quite possibly the best survival exotic a hunter has, which makes it ideal for those players just starting a hunter. When defeating an enemy with a powered melee attack or a finisher, you'll receive an instant bump in health and you'll become invisible. Having invisibility on a Strand, Arc, Stasis, or Solar build makes the Assassin's Cowl an incredibly versatile and must-have exotic for every new hunter. Another exotic that's going to keep you and allies alive is the Omnioculus. This gives invisible hunters a second smoke bomb charge, which gets charged faster when making allies invisible. This also grants 50% damage resistance whenever invisibility is triggered by either Trapper's Ambush or a smoke bomb. So on top of the weakening effects that you'll be able to inflict onto your enemies, along with a tether, you'll also be offering on-demand damage resistance to go along with that invisibility, which can really come in clutch in so many in-game activities. Moving away from the survivability focus, let's take a look at some exotics that's going to increase your damage output. Starting with the Star Eater scale. This exotic is focused entirely around your super, providing an incremental increase in super damage as you collect orbs once your super is already charged. This provides as much as a 70% increase in super damage that will get applied to any super from any subclass, but it's been most effective on Gathering Storm, Blade Barrage, and the Silk Strike. Along with bonus super damage, you'll gain a burst of healing after casting your super, and when collecting orbs, you'll receive bonus super energy, allowing you to cast your super more often. This is truly a perfect exotic when taking on raid, dungeon, and nightfall bosses. The next exotic that we'll look at is the Foe Tracers. This exotic saw a complete rework this season, and now whenever striking a tier 4 enemy with any charged ability, you'll receive a ×4 weapon surge to all weapons that match your subclass. That equates out to be a 25% bonus in damage that you can repeatedly trigger against high-ranking enemies like champions, tormentors, bosses, and other guardians. Since this works with any subclass, it will serve as a great exotic to swap off from after casting your super with the Star Eaters, if you happen to have both exotics, that is. And the final exotic that we're going to talk about today is the Lucky Pants. This is another damage-oriented exotic that provides several performance enhancements to all hand cannons, including a substantial increase in damage after swapping to a fully loaded hand cannon. When this exotic gets paired up with hand cannons like the Malfeasance, which just got a new catalyst, the Ariana's Vow, or the Warden's Law, you'll be able to dish out some insane levels of damage. And not only will the Lucky Pants bring you a constant source of bonus damage in whatever PvE activity you go into, but when paired up with weapons like the Crimson, the Sunshot, Baitbringer, or many other legendary hand cannons, you'll become a god within the Crucible, just as Cade 6 would expect. And with that, we've covered 5 Titan Exotics, 5 Warlock Exotics, and 5 Hunter Exotics that stand above the rest to provide you with top tier performance that will ultimately help you become a better Guardian. Now, before we bring this video to a close, I do want to point out a group of extremely powerful exotics that will bring an extra level of versatility to your fire team. The Aeon Cult. This includes the Aeon Swift, Aeon Soul, and Aeon Safe, an exotic arm piece for each class. These exotics offer 3 different perks that can be changed out at a moment's notice, with some becoming extremely beneficial in raids and dungeons, where heavy ammo is needed by the stacks. And when you find yourself in these situations, having someone on the team running Aeons is going to be a big help towards your heavy and special ammo. If your favorite exotic wasn't mentioned in today's video, then be sure to sound off in the comments below and let us know what exotic you think should have made it onto the list. Thank you as always for checking out today's video. If you enjoyed and found it helpful, then be sure to hit that like button below, along with the subscribe button if you're new. Both are greatly appreciated and both really do help support the channel. To support the channel further, you can visit the newly opened merch store or the Patreon site, both having links listed in the description below. If you're a new Light Guardian, a returning Guardian, or a battle-hardened veteran just looking for a new home, then be sure to check out the Discord link in the description below and join one of the greatest communities in all of Destiny. And until next time, Guardians, this has been Profane, wishing you all some happy hunting.